Hey everybody, please like and subscribe if you like the content. Feel free to check out any of my other reviews, whether that's the rest of the Andor series, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett. Also check out my Star Wars sequel fan remake, and episode 9 is in the works and is looking good so far. Anyways, let's get into this. So I'm going to do 8 and 9 in one shot here. Kind of having to do that because this show so far has been incredibly boring and very slow moving, and everyone says that that's what makes it well written, which I find very strange. Everyone's like, well, you just can't handle a dialogue driven show. I watched every single episode of Game of Thrones and the plot moved. Just because it was dialogue driven didn't mean nothing ever happened. Stuff happened all the time, every episode. Whereas this one, it takes like 5 to have something meaningful happen, right? So anyways, let's get into the actual show itself. So Andor is transported to a prison planet. The Empire is going to look for him on Ferris. So he's literally gone from there. He's under a different name, and they're so far behind at this point, the Empire, that we can guarantee it will be at least a bunch of episodes before there's any kind of catching up to him and any kind of climax. So I'm assuming they're finally going to catch up to him in the final episode because he's 3 planets ahead of them. So they're guaranteeing that the show's going to drag on even more. So the prison guard, I have to mention, the prison guard outfits look really dumb. With the boots and everything, it's just so stupid. But anyways, then the Crunchberry guy gets a job at the Empire again, and that's to help find Andor, who is, like I suggested or said, is 3 planets ahead of them already. And he's in prison anyway. Anyway, it's kind of silly, but the prison scenes were actually kind of cool. I will give credit where credit is due. They did a good job of those. Just the whole dynamic with all the characters, and Andy Serkis does a really good job. His character's really interesting, so I will give them full credit for that. The prison scenes, this actually starts to get maybe, possibly even interesting. And then we get a scene with Mon Mothma where she's trying to recruit votes to stop the Emperor's new overreaching power he's going to have. But we already know the Senate is basically useless. We know that in Disney canon, even Palpatine can pretty much just like ignores the Senate when he doesn't want to listen to it. So these are scenes we didn't need to see. We know no one cares. Why do we need to see this? So it just drags on the show even more. And so there's no stakes because we already know that they're not going to listen to her. We know the Emperor is going to basically dissolve them pretty soon anyway, and also he doesn't listen to them anyway. So it's kind of pointless and boring, and the entire arc or lack thereof with Mon Mothma just didn't even need to be in the show at all. I don't know what the purpose of it was. I still don't know what the purpose of it is. It doesn't serve anything. You could still have Andor, you could still have Luthen, you could still have that whole dynamic. You didn't need Mon Mothma at all for the show, and it speaks to the idea that it's just fans. It's there's good fan service. It's just bad fan service. And Mon Mothma isn't even herself. She's afraid all the time. She's not. It doesn't reflect who she is in A New Hope or even Rogue One at all. So I don't really get it. The prison is back to the prison scenes. They go back to it, and it's very THX, which was, I thought, kind of cool. Which was George's sort of first film that kind of put his name out there. I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of an ode to George. And then at the end of the episode, we get the Imperials now going after Andor's friends on the original planet he was from. This is a bit better episode, but still virtually nothing happens. That's literally all that happens. We know that Andor's in prison, and we know that Mon Mothma still isn't doing anything and is making no progress, and we know now that the Imperials are looking for Andor's friends. So that's literally all that happens. So then we get to episode 9. This is where things actually start to get somewhat interesting, even though it's still pretty boring. But at least there is a setup here, and I'll get into that. So it starts with a long interrogation scene of Andor's female friend, who is sending the signal to Luthen about what was going on, and Resting Bitchface is the one interrogating her. And I must say, now that they've sort of brought her into more scenes and stuff, she's actually really good at her role. I actually really think she's good as one of these Imperial leaders. I don't actually even know what her title is, but she's actually really good as an actor, and she's basically found out pretty much everything, and now she's just going to question this last person. The other guy spilled the beans, I guess, off camera. So she pretty much knows everything other than where Andor is right now. And then she goes back to the prison, and Andor is kind of showing that he's a quality guy to the other inmates, and they're starting to trust him more. And then it goes back to the interrogation, and they end up torturing Andor's friend there that owned the parts business or whatever, and they put something on her head with some horrible sound from some alien or whatever, and then she just can't handle it. And then it goes back to Andor in the prison again, and they're starting to plot to cause an uprising. And then we're back to Mothma in the Senate, and now she's getting heckled for not giving in to the Emperor by the other senators. And again, we know this. Visually stunning, I get it. You're showing the Senate again. Ooh, member berries. Remember the Senate and the prequels? Member berry? Totally pointless. She doesn't even need to be in the show so far. I don't know what the point of any of this is. And then the prisoners find out the guards killed over 100 men by electrocution, and then they start freaking out. Back at the prison, they start freaking out because of that. And then Andor... And then we get another just totally pointless scene with Crunchberry guy and his mom. I just don't know why they keep putting these scenes in there. It just drags the show on. It's absolutely pointless. I got a job, Mom, and you went through my private box in my room because I'm 5 and I still live at home even though I've had a job. Like, it's just so dumb. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And he's like 40 and he's living at home with his mom. Like, leave. Like, anyway, these scenes suck. And then another really cringe scene where Crunchberry admits to Resting Bitchface that he's basically been stalking her and he wanted to thank her for helping him get his job back. Like, this is what Star Wars is for Andor. I got my job back. I gotta thank her. I gotta go find her. I got my job. It's just... So anyway, so there's really good parts about this episode finally, and then there's really stupid stuff like this. And then he's revealing himself to be a psycho, and it's just a cringe scene. Why? I don't know, but I guess probably he'll do something psychotic for the Empire later, and this is just, the foreshadowing of his craziness. And then the plot around Resting Bitch putting the pieces together is actually the one thing that is good about this episode, and it's intriguing, and she's capable and quite menacing and nasty, but very order-oriented. Like, she kind of reminds you of the Empire, how it's supposed to be, not the stupid Empire that a lot of these Disney Plus shows present. It's very capable, very threatening. So they do a really good job. And ultimately, it's a shame that they dragged out the basis for where they are now over 7 episodes. Like, the dam raid should have happened right away. That shouldn't have dragged on. That should have been like episode 1. And then we'd be already at this point earlier and have more interest earlier instead of just the drag out that they did. It was very, very poor pacing and very, very silly of them to do that. And because now it's actually going into episode 10, I'm like, oh, episode 10 might be really, really interesting. You got the prison uprising happening. You've got this Imperial chick, and she's very capable, and things are changing, and she might find Andor, and what's going on. But instead we got just this long drawn out thing that just bored everybody. And then the prison is breaking down now, as guys start realizing they're never going to get out. And so one of the guys gets sick and injured or whatever, and the hospital inmate, or doctor inmate, basically spills the beans to Andy Serkis's character, who's really good in this, by the way, this episode, that you're never going to get out. No one's leaving here, ever. And so now they're all freaking out and, what are we going to do? And that's when the episode ends, which is good. So it's finally starting to get interesting plot-wise in those two areas, the Empire chick and the prison. The Mon Mothma stuff is useless. It just drags the show. It's terrible and is basically unnecessary. Get rid of it. But this was by far the best episode of the series, and again, we should have been at this point in a much quicker pace. It shouldn't have taken this long, and that's the real crux of this show, is that it's just they just drag everything on and don't get on with it. And again, dialogue driven doesn't mean boring, nothing, pointless scenes. Like, Mothma at the Senate in this episode was no different than Mothma at the Senate 4 episodes ago. It's just the same scene being rehashed again. Maybe there's a couple more boos this time. Ooh, she got booed more by somebody. Like, they're doing that to make these 50-minute episodes so that they can say that they did this longer show, but it's just boring and dumb. So anyways, that's my 2 bits, guys. I'm going to check out episode 10, and if nothing happens in that episode and they don't move the plot forward and they go back again after they've made progress finally, then I'm done. I'm not watching the show again. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.